Hi, welcome to Ladies Leading. I'm your host, Jessica Gendron. Maya Angelou once said, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." I believe in the world today there are too many stories of female leaders left untold. It has become my personal mission to give those stories a microphone. Ladies Leading intends to share the real stories of female leaders on their journeys to and through leadership, so that we might gain precious insight and advice from leaders just like them. We're giving women the microphone. Welcome to Ladies Leading. Our guest today is joining us on a very special day. It is her birthday. So I would like to welcome Amber. Amber, welcome. I want to give you the microphone. And would you start by just telling us who you are and what you do?
I would love that. Jessica, thank you so much for having me on today.
Sure.
I am Amber Fields. I am a mama of 5 kids. We are a blended family, and my stepkids are 20, almost 19. I have a 15-year-old, and I have a set of twins that are 9.
My
So
goodness.
first and foremost, they are everything in this world to me. And I have been living the crazy life of COVID the last couple of months, hanging out. I am a school teacher and a business professional, and and a cook. I do a lot of cooking, so yeah.
A short order cook, a line cook, a lunch cook,
Yes, I found out that if I don't step outside of my office to feed my kids lunch, they don't eat.
I know one day my husband and I were not in great communication about who was going to feed the tiny humans. And it was like 1:00 and my 5-year-old walks up to me and she goes, "Mommy, I'm really hungry." And I was like, "Well, did you have lunch, baby?" And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, nobody remembered to feed the kids." So eat. Yeah, mom fail.
Yeah, you would think that they're big enough. I mean, they're 9. Go find you something to eat. And they're like, "No, we were waiting on you to make us lunch." I'm like, listen, just because I'm at home does not mean that I'm able.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
the things I'm learning right now.
Oh my gosh. Well, so will you tell us a little bit about your career journey and sort of how you got to where you are today? Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I went to school to be a television news anchor, and I had it all planned out.
You got
I
a great
knew.
face for TV.
Oh, thank you. But it was around the time of 9/11,
Mm.
and I was actually on the air that day. I was the news director for a local radio station. I was a senior in college, and through tears, I'm giving the report that the first plane had been flown into the tower. And I just got off the air and was emotionally distraught. My brother lives in New York, and I couldn't get a hold of him. So it was very emotionally taxing, and our country is under attack, and so I had to really reevaluate in that moment. Like, I just don't know if I'm the person for that.
Right.
But I had an $80,000 degree that said you better. So
That's cheap these days.
right. Like a good little girl, I tried. I gave it my best effort. I had simultaneously met my husband, and he had 2 small children that I wasn't willing to move, around the country to do a career that I wasn't even 100% sure I wanted to do. So I tried a lot of different things. I was a writer at Fox 59. I did sales. I sold people for a local security company. That was fun. And I ultimately landed in logistics, customer service, and team leads for international freight forwarding. And I did
Wow.
that for a long time. Yeah. And then I realized that I didn't like to sit within the 4 walls of a building every single day doing the same thing every day. It was really tough.
Mhm.
But at that point in your life, like, well, what are you supposed to be doing? I don't know. How do I find out? Like, what are my gifts and talents? Like, I was just so confused.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of personal growth and development courses
Mm.
to try to help me uncover my gifts and talents, to get some clarity around what I'm really good at and what I want to be doing. And Jessica, it was scary because it was like sales kept coming back into my life. Like, you need to be in sales. You're great at relationships. You love people. Like, what are you doing? And it keeps you from being inside a building 24/7. You get to be out in the world. And I just had this like huge stigma around being a sleazy salesperson, right? I had been
Yeah.
sold to so many times.
Yes.
So I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
And so I just set an intention that I wasn't going to be. I was going to find something that spoke to my heart that I could be a part of. And I had very early on some people invest in me. And you and I have talked about mentors before, come to me and say, I want you to come work for me. I was like, I can't come sell technology. That sounds like a terrible idea. I'm the girl that's like, how do you troubleshoot that thing? Like, do you turn it on and turn it back? What is that? He just laughed. He said, what do you think you're selling? And I said, I don't know, but it sounds hard. And he said, you're not right.
Yeah.
And he said, you're not selling how it works. You're selling the experience that it creates for others, how technology can help people better their lives, grow in business. And after that, I was done. I was like, oh, yes, that is a mission that I can get behind. And that's all she wrote. I've never looked back. Tech is it for me.
Tech and tech sales. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
sales is such a hard place sometimes for women to even think about being, because it just feels so counter to what women are good at. But in fact, it's actually exactly what women are good at.
Yes. And there aren't very many women in it today.
Mhm.
It's growing, it's getting better. But for me, it's like I want to blaze a path that allows and gives other girls and women permission to be a part of something that doesn't normally look like we can be.
Mhm.
I'm a huge advocate. I do a lot with women in high tech because I just believe in bringing those girls up in STEM and helping them see that they have a place in this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how talk to me about these people that invested in you early. I think, we know, you and I both know, we've had this conversation before about, how important mentorship and advocates and sponsorship within organizations is important for women's career success. But I think so many women are like, well, how do I find a mentor? Do I just like pick one and say, hey, will you be my mentor? Like a Dr. Seuss book or something. And
Right.
I think women are really sometimes at a loss of, well, how do I get people to sponsor me? And how do I find a mentor? And if it's not, officially assigned to me within my organization. Will you talk a little bit about how you did that?
Yeah. It is truly about networking and relationships.
Mm.
And surrounding yourself, being intentional about surrounding yourself with the people who see things in you that you can't necessarily see in yourself.
Mhm.
So, I think for me, it's organically happened, right? And they've never really had the official title of mentor. I never went to the table and was like, hey, I need you to mentor me. Sometimes it does look like that, but it was one of those where we're in a conversation like you and I are having like this, and they're giving me pieces of their career and their story that speaks to my heart, that I can resonate with. And then you just keep coming back to the table with those conversations. And there were times where I asked, hey, tell me more about that. Can you help me with this? Because that's the other thing I think women struggle with sometimes, is asking for help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. In a big
we
way.
in a big way, right? Personally, professionally, I didn't get to where I am without asking for help and being courageous in asking women who I put on a pedestal,
Mm.
women that I had seen, much higher and much more success, and I want to be where you are. And but then being afraid to go to them and say, how'd you get there?
Mhm.
How, and would you be willing to help me, give me what I need to be there too? Because I have a vision of going to those places too. And it was men and women. It wasn't, you have to have your male allies too.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my first, it was a man who brought me into tech and saw something in me that he thought was missing in the industry.
Mm.
And he and I went through a program, got clarity around what I was supposed to be doing with my life, and then I left him for another opportunity. And you know what he said? That's what happens. I was this stepping stone, I was this tool to lead you to the next best thing. And I am forever grateful for those words. It was tough when you're going through the process of it all and figuring it all out, but that's the thing. I don't have it figured out. even today, like even still, as I'm moving into what's next for me, I still don't have it figured out. I still rely on the people that I know to help me get to where I'm going, and turning around and giving it back to you.
Right. I had a boss one time, and he's a mentor of mine now. He's sort of one of those people I turn to when I need a kick in the pants. You know how you have those people where you're like, okay, beat me up a little bit because I'm in a dark hole here. And he said to me at one point, I'm under no illusion that you are going to stay and work for me forever. And in fact, if you do, I've not done my job. My
Mhm.
job is to prepare you for your next opportunity. And if you come back years later to work for me again, that's great. But I don't want you to stay here forever. And I was like, oh,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah. And I think
Amazing.
I think that that was just such important advice, just similar where you left this great mentor who tapped you to come into this industry in this role, and he was okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fantastic. I mean, and the next role that I went into was at local wireless, well, not local, but wireless provider. And oh my gosh, the doors that it opened for me, like it was just the mentors, the investment in you, the ability to get into the market and network and meet business owners and talk to people and provide solutions that matter was huge. They afforded me the opportunity where I got to go meet the chief marketing officer of Verizon in New York City.
Cool.
Like, and you know what happened? It was one of the most courageous and brave things I've ever done in my life. I was in a program, they do a lot of leadership coaching,
Mhm.
and they wanted us to do like a marketing play. Tell us what you think would be good to help us re-engage our marketing. And I was like, well, I don't really understand how it works today. I would really like to hear it from the horse's mouth. Can I meet with him, have a phone conversation? And they said, well, we don't know, but send him an email and ask him. And I thought, well, worst case scenario, he says no. So what if he says yes? Jessica, he said yes.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Sitting in the corporate offices of the largest wireless, provider. And I've never learned so much, like just watching how it all played out and getting to know him and his family. Because his kids actually came to work that day. It was
So
it
fun.
was so fun. But that's one of the things, if I hadn't asked, the answer is always no.
Yeah, I'm writing that down right now because that's the golden nugget, right? If I hadn't asked, the answer is always no. I
Yeah.
mean, you're totally right about that. Um,
And then he posted about it on Instagram.
really?
Yes. Yes, he tagged me on Instagram. I just
Oh my
thought,
gosh, you're practically famous.
I just like was like, oh my gosh, he knows who I am. And then he posted about it, and it was the same day where they were doing a docu series about the digital divide between kids in school.
Mm,
So I'm just, you gotta explore. You've got to be open to what is possible for you,
mhm.
and then build on your own courage and be brave about it. That's kind of my motto. Just take it on, take the risk, and be courageous about it, because you never know what's on the other side of that.
Yeah, I want to talk about courage for a second, because I feel like for a lot of women, that might be the thing holding us back, and it's just that fear. How did you get over that fear? How did you learn to be courageous in that way? I
I
think that
really,
fear of failure and rejection is so heavy for so many females as they're, you know, journeying through their career. I think that that's the hard part.
yeah, I fought through it because I had a huge failure in my career. A lot of people, I was in that transition point in my life where I had 5 kids, and I was working in those logistics jobs, and I was trying to figure out what was next for me. And honestly, Jessica, I really got lost in only being a mom and a wife and going to work every day and taking care of my family. I lost my identity. I lost myself. I found it again, and I had to figure out a way to take care of my family financially, but I wanted to be at home with them. So I went down a network marketing path, and I was really successful really fast. It taught me a lot about sales and marketing. and hustling.
Mm.
And then that business failed miserably, but I had formed an identity around that career, and I couldn't figure out how to pick myself back up. So I actually fed off of other women's courage. You
Mm.
know, they were pouring into me. They were building me up and allowing for me to stand on their shoulders until I had the wherewithal to get up on my own 2 feet again. And I just think of many conversations of somebody else pouring into me and believing in me until I saw it for myself. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, that moment of having women there to support you and letting you stand on their shoulders, I don't think that's common.
Not really. And what I had to dig, Jessica, I had to dig really deep and come out from underneath a lot of masks. And I took a particular personal growth and development course that helped me like uncover some of those things. It's all about authenticity and trust, building on trust and showing up as your true self. And yeah, the coaches that I had in this course and once you go through it, you're allowed to go back and be one of those coaches. And I can tell you that there is more on the other side of giving back than there was for me even being a participant. Because now I'm starting to see myself mirroring. I see myself in you. I see myself in, you know, in so many different people.
Mhm.
And then it allows for a level of awareness of that I never had before. It was amazing, you know, and then I can take that and go to the world and get done what I need to get done, you know, because you're showing up as your authentic self and it feels in alignment and it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel that so much. I mean, authenticity is so important to who I am. It's sort of intrinsic in my value set. And you know, I found myself in careers before and in jobs before where I felt like I had to wear a mask, and it just feels icky. You know, you show up to work and you're like, ugh, I feel icky about this, or I feel icky in this job, or I don't want to go to work. It doesn't give me energy. And I think that authentic showing up as your authentic self is so important. You're totally right.
Yeah. And let's talk about that because how many jobs did I show up as what I thought they wanted me to be versus finding the job that allowed for me to just be me.
Yeah.
And it took, I used to carry this around like a badge of honor, but it took me 17 jobs in my professional career to find my home, to find the place where the culture matched, where I made sense inside of their organization. They allowed for me to be my authentic self with that psychological safety, you know, where I don't feel like I'm going to be picked apart as a, you know, as a human being. And there were so many jobs, and it's not that they don't know. The people, the other jobs that I had the same situations happening where people were showing up where they thought that's what they had to be, and they thought that that's what they were supposed to do. You know, one of the things I'm teaching my girls right now is you don't show up any other way other than the way that you feel is right for you in that day. Obviously there's some guardrails and some boundaries around
Right.
that, right? Like
Yeah.
don't go to school and yell and scream at your teacher or anything like that. But I also want you to be curious. If that doesn't feel right for you, let's have a conversation about it, because I didn't do that. And the type of work that I've had to do on the back end of my career to pull the masks off and to uncover my authentic self, like more tears than a person should be allowed to cry. This raw vulnerability that I have to give it all the love and shout out to my husband, because I fell into his arms many a times like, I don't know who I am, and it is a really uncomfortable life to live when you're sitting at someone else's level of expectation.
Mhm. Yeah, you're totally right. In my last career transition, I think I went through something pretty similar of just not really feeling directionless and feeling like, you know, I have all these possibilities and all of these options, and I don't know, I don't even know what direction I should be pointing. And
Mhm.
just, I think my husband was so annoyed with me because I think on a daily basis, I would say, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what my passion is. And it took a lot of that self exploration and processing, and I like the way you say it, unmasking myself to really determine what are those things that make me feel alive, you know?
I'm a constant learner. I get a lot of flack for continuously pouring into myself and trying to find ways to be the best version of myself. But I never want to go back to who that person was. I never want to forget. So, and the better that I show up, the better that I am, that means that it makes the world a better place for the people that I'm around. I give permission and am the invitation for other people to be that way too. So I'll never give up, continuing education and helping myself be the better version of me, because it's so important personally and professionally. We're continuously growing. I'm not done where I'm at right now. I'm headed to another plane. Don't have all the answers, but every single day is one step closer to what that is, So I think a lot of times we have to give ourselves permission to be allowed to pour into ourselves, because it feels selfish. It feels like, but it's not. It's one of the greatest gifts.
Yeah. I read a book years ago. It's called When Things Fall Apart. It's written by a Buddhist, and, Eastern thought is very different than Western thought. And, Western thought is really like control, have a plan, follow the plan, step by step, 5 years, get there, degree, certification, resume, like all these like milestones, achievements. And that's very Western thought. Like that's very American. And this book, When Things Fall Apart, talks about how Eastern thought is really founded in, like, you just let go and you give it up to the universe. And I feel like so much of what makes, there's so many of us women leaders, I think, that are like type A, like have a plan, control things, know what steps you're taking, see the horizon line 10 years out in the road. And that book always brings me back to part of this journey is unknown, and that's the beauty of the journey. And maybe it's a little bit of letting go and letting the road unfold in front of you, and, not always knowing where the plane's going, but just getting on the plane.
That's it. I just had an amazing conversation with one of my mentors before we got on the phone, and her and I were talking about that. We were talking about, for me, the biggest aha moment, the biggest was, you just get to keep showing up. You don't have to bring anything with you. You don't need to plan or have it all figured out. Just continue to show up, because your God-given gifts are going to give you everything that you need for in that moment. And I was like, advice. Oh, I so needed that for our conversation today. Because, your ego will tell you, no, you need to say this, because you want to make sure that you get it right and you want to perform for the people. Yep. But what if they actually need to hear an authentic story about a woman who has struggled in her life, but continues to get up every single day doing the best that I can with what I have? What if that's what they need to hear?
That is what they need to hear.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to give you the microphone, because I think your story is so important. You work in tech. Can we talk about being a girl in tech for a little bit, being a girl in sort of a male dominated field, and maybe what are some of those challenges that you've encountered? Because I think that there's a lot of women that are sitting in rooms full of men and feel things that they didn't even know everybody else was feeling.
Absolutely. I think that for women coming in, a lot of time, for me, they've automatically assumed that I don't know what I'm talking about. And if you remember, I said early on in my career, that was something I was scared. I was nervous about, like, maybe I can't talk the tech. Maybe I'm not going to be good enough to do this job, until I realized, no, my gifts are not in understanding the tech. My gifts are putting the people at the proper people at the right table, so that those people can have the conversation. My gift is in connection, in the growth of it. And when I set in, I belong at that table, and they don't get to question otherwise. And sometimes they do. And I just come confidently with who I am and what I know. And if I get it wrong, that's okay too, right? Oh, didn't get that right, but I'm not going to let that feed that negative self-talk because I won't go to the table next time. You know, it will keep me from playing big. And I have been, even in my life at Verizon, I was the only female solutions architect for a long time in my area. And you just bring a different sense to the group, a sense of community and connection and conversation that they weren't having before. And it built us up as a team. And I loved my male allies. Like, they were my family. When I left, I was in tears because I just didn't want to not be a part of that family anymore. And all I've done is continue to figure out how to use those guys in my future life and bring them forward with me, because they made such a huge impact. But they allowed for me to be who I was and to be a part of their group and it not be weird. You know, I think there was some adjustment because you can't have the same types of conversations. You know, they're like, oh, there's a girl in the room. And I'm like, I could be one of the boys too. Like,
right. Like, I think jokes are funny. Like, you know, like,
I like to laugh. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it taught them a lot, and it taught me a lot. You know, that we each have different gifts and it looks different, and it is a requirement and a necessity for us to work together in order to create the win, which is what we're all looking for.
Yeah. Have you had people like, you know, in the tech industry, guys that have not been so welcoming or supportive or encouraging of you?
Yeah. Yeah. And it requires conversation. It's
I love you.
It's courage and a conversation. I can think of one in particular. Always trying to be very competitive. You know, there's competitive nature about us, and we were on the same level. And there was some drama stirring up. There were things happening, and I'm not the type of person to let things like that drone on. So I just went and had the conversation with him, and it actually was not the outcome that I had intended. He became very vulnerable. And he was like, no one's ever had the guts to come to me and say anything like this before. And I was like, because what is happening right now is not good for our organization. We may not ever get along, and you may not ever agree that I deserve to be here, but you will respect me. And there is a boundary here that you're not allowed. You're not allowed to cross any longer. And let me tell you, when I walked away from that conversation, he was a different person. I was a different person. I went to my boss, and he was like, wow. He's like, I've been telling him that for years, and nothing's ever changed. Sometimes you got to dig really deep and just show up in your power and say what needs to be said.
That's one of those conversations sometimes where you walk out and you're like, oh, and then you like crumble into your chair and you're like, oh my God, did that just happen?
It's just like, though, you make it up in your head what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And whether it's good or bad, it's never actually what you thought it was going to be. Like, I did not expect the man to like come to tears and go, I didn't realize I was doing this. I'm sorry that that's how I made you feel. And I don't actually believe that you don't belong here. But if that's what I'm giving off, I am so sorry. And then he was open to coaching, and we coach each other. We help each other. It changed the trajectory of our relationship after that, for good. You know, he was showing up bigger and brighter, and it allowed for more cohesiveness within our team. But had I been afraid, and believe me, I sat on the other side of that office and was like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Like, you're having this conversation.
Psych yourself out. You're like,
yeah. Am I gonna get in trouble? Oh, is he gonna? You're like, there was just so many. Yes, and finally, I just pulled the Band-Aid off and went and had it. So, and it was one of the best.
That's awesome. Have there been conversations like that have gone wrong? I can't imagine for you that they've gone wrong, but I just
not really.
You're just such hard. You're. I don't want to use a bad word, but you know, you're kind of a bad A. You know, like
Thank you. Look, I just set the intention. My intention is to create a win out of this. And if I am clear about what I'm trying to cause, mm-hmm. and the experience that I want to create, then it's really easy to have the conversation in such a way that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that it always starts out and it doesn't feel good and I don't have the butterflies, because every time I do. Yep. You just ignore them. You just have to go into it anyway. I mean, and there's conversations like that with women too. Let's be real. not all women are open to having another woman at the table.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, because there's that competitive piece there, like, oh, she's going to show me up, or, so there's conversations to be had there too about understanding that people's come from. That happened. There was potential for some weird things to happen in my current job where I was coming in as a new person, and they had already actually filled the position that I was that I was going to have, but they had to create a new one for me to be here. And it was that could be weird. Now I'm here, and so it just required a telephone call for her and I to have the conversation that, look, we are here to create growth and a winning scenario for our company. I am not here to take you out. I love people. I'm about humanity. Honestly, Jessica, I am about the people behind the tech.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I exist in this role. That is my vision for the growth of my company. How can I help you be a better version of yourself? And yes, tech happens to be what we're really good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. That is a mentality that I think I wish we could infuse into every woman that enters the working world, of being supportive of one another and not seeing each other as competition, especially as we ascend, because it gets kind of thin up at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there's so many instances and stories of, as we ascend, it gets more competitive, and not between the males and the females, but really between the females at the top. And I wish everyone had the type of mentality that you have of, we're here to create a win. I love that you said that. I wrote that down. My intention is to create a win. And I just wish we could infuse that into so many more people, so that it wasn't competitive, and that we understood the more of us that are at the top, the more of us we can continue to bring to the top.
That's right. Yeah. Be the invitation for them to come along.
Gosh, I love that. Can we talk about being a mom and a female leader? I think, I talk to so many young women right now who want to be a leader and also want to be a mom, but aren't either yet, and are sort of toying with the decision that they have to choose. And you and I both know you don't have to choose. So will you talk about like how you've navigated that and some of the lessons you've learned about being a mom and being a leader?
Yeah, I got to early on give myself permission for choosing to be a career mom, because I used to feel guilty. Like it's not in my DNA to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my stay-at-home mommies. That is a big job.
Big job. I mean, I think we're all learning that now in quarantine. We're like, this is a big job. This is not a job I want.
No. And I can't be guilty. Like I refuse to allow myself to feel guilty about that, because I'm also teaching my kids. I have 3 girls and 2 boys, and I'm teaching them what it looks like to be able to create this symphony. It's not even a balancing act. It is, mom is a better mom when I am in contribution to the community, when I can go to work every day and come out feeling like I made a difference. Now, there is this dance of, remember to make sure you're making a difference inside of your home and not get too wrapped up in what's happening at work, because that happens to me a lot.
Yeah.
COVID has taught me quite a bit about what I'm saying yes to. And being intentional about creating the same experience for the 6 people inside of my home as I do for the team that I work for and with inside of my company, and all the places where I'm in philanthropy and all of that. But it is possible. And I just had to shut out the world that told me that I was wrong for choosing my work over them sometimes. And my girls will tell you, you're teaching us what it looks like to be able to have both, and that there's no less than. They're not going to be bad humans because mom wasn't here 24/7. They're going to grow up and they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I told my story a couple months ago for a group that I was in, Rise and Thrive, and I brought my girls to that event, and I allowed for them to see, me publicly speak and tell my story, and they were just like, Mom, you are so vibrant and so big, and we cannot even believe that you are our mom and that you still have stories that you haven't told us. Like we had no idea that you were almost adopted. And it's important for you to allow them to see who you really are and that it is possible to have both, so that they can make the decision to have it either way. They get to have it whatever way they want it to be. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, do that, because I'm going to support you in that. If you want to go to work and you want to figure out a way to be in contribution to the world and take your gifts and do that way, do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do it by yourself. I would never, ever, ever be able to do this without a partner, without a husband, without my family, my parents, like my community, my tribe, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
They have been a part of helping me get to where I am and do what I do, because they were willing to spend the time with my kids and be a part of their life. But that's a gift for them too, so
Yeah.
It takes the village.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about that. I think it's becoming more and more apparent as we have no villages for us right now. We're like, oh, I need my village.
Yes.
I talk frequently with my lady friends. I was like, can we just build a commune where like all the houses back into each other, and we just like put a playground in the middle, and we communally cook dinner together every night, and then we put the kids to bed in our own houses, and then we drink wine in the playground. I don't know.
I actually have that. I've become really good friends with a lot of the people in my neighborhood, and they go to their house and visit and have dinner over there, and their kids come to our house, and it's fantastic to have friendships and relationships that will allow for you to do all of the things that you want to do in your life.
Yeah. I love
One day when we can get back to doing those things like vacation and networking events, fancy celebration events, all that.
Events that allow me to not wear yoga pants.
Yes. My yoga pants have never seen so much action. I actually put on jeans for you today, though.
I'm wearing pants with a button too.
You want to check that just to make sure they still fit.
I know. I was telling a friend the other night, I said, I try to put on a pair of pants with buttons at least once a week, just to, just to check, just to make sure.
A little litmus test.
Yeah.
To make sure I'm not overdoing it on the wine.
Yeah. I'm not gaining the COVID-19, you know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
Just check your pants once a week.
check your pants. I'm actually tired of wearing yoga pants. Like, I'm over it. I never thought in a million years I would ever say that, but like, I have all these nice clothes in my closet and not wearing any of them.
Yeah, I feel like yoga pants had their day in the sun, and now we're sunsetting them. I think everybody's going to be super tired of yoga pants after this. So blue jeans are making a comeback.
That's right.
So talk to me a little bit about what's some advice you would give to women who are trying to advance. They're trying to be a leader. They're trying to build a business, whatever it is. What's some advice you would give for them?
Yeah. Show up as your authentic self. Make no excuses for who you are. People get to receive you exactly the way that you are. And if they don't receive you, that's on them and not you. And be with the people who believe in you the most. You've got to surround yourself. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Someone told me that early on in my career, and I was like, I am. And you need people that will feed you, and that you get to, it's a reciprocal relationship. It's a give and take. We're giving our gifts away, and you're receiving who they are as people. You got to surround yourself with good people who believe in you and will help you get to where you're going.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then be courageous and have authentic conversations.
Yeah. I love that. That is your theme. I feel like that was just woven into every answer without you even saying it. It's just this idea of being courageous. That's going to be your theme. I feel like that should be your word. Do you have a word?
It's always been courageous. Yes, like that. So it's funny that I'm getting validation from the universe today, because it just is. I had to be courageous as a young child. helping my mom and dad raise my brother and sister. They worked opposite shifts and jobs. And so it's just been a part of who I was to help raise these two small people, which I think made me a really good mom. But I needed to be courageous to raise somebody else's kids. I have, and to embark on a path where my husband and his ex-wife were not on good terms when I came into the picture, and trying to navigate a broken family. And we often collectively say, I was kind of the glue that helped put them back together, because they weren't communicating, and someone had to take a stand for these kids and figure out how to put the things aside that didn't matter. And look, the co-parenting is required so that these two kids can grow up in two loving homes and be able to, create a life of their own. And you have to co-parent, because they know how to play you. They figure out the fiddle really quick. So,
we see sprinkles of that in our 5-year-old recently. We're like, oh, you are mom and dadding us right now. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So I just feel like being courageous is necessary in living this life.
Gosh, I love it. I love that so much. Okay. So last question. I want to make sure I read it verbatim. What is the one most critical skill or trait you think every female leader needs?
Oh man, there's so many that I could throw out there. I think that the most critical skill is trust. You have to trust yourself in order for other people to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
And so many of the decisions that I've made were questionable because I was uncertain that I could trust myself, that I didn't know if I was on the right path or if I was doing the right thing. And that goes in work, it's at home, it's everywhere. But you were given gifts and you were made as this incredible person, to walk this earth. I believe that we have this intuition about us, that we know what's right. We know if you can take away the masks, if you could take away the expectations and what other people are going to say about whatever it is you're making a decision about, the right answer.
Yeah, I love that so much. I want to follow up to that really quick. I don't normally do this, but I want to follow up to that because I feel like so many women have a really hard time trusting themselves, and society sort of teaches us not even to trust our own intuition.
Right.
And I'm curious if you have tips or advice on what work they can do for themselves and on themselves to build that trust.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I took a lot of different, I've done the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, not once, but twice. Someone believed that I needed it 2 times. There's some local here in Indy. There's some local classes that you can take that help you understand what trust truly is. And if someone was interested, I would be happy to share. But it's really being in discovery of who you are. We literally grow up being told, yes, you can do that. No, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's wrong. They need to find a platform where they have permission to dig in and do the work that is required to uncover their authentic self.
Yep.
That is where you find trust. And the other thing about trust is, think of it like this: you create it. If you just go to the table and just decide that you're going to trust this person, that you're going to trust yourself, be intentional about that, and know that it becomes like a practice. Mm-hmm. The more you do it, the more the more often that you will find yourself being able to do it.
Yeah.
And then not giving a crap about what other people think. I think that's the biggest thing, is we don't trust ourselves because we've had so many people tell us differently. Well, I wouldn't have done it like that. I would have done it like this. Listen, at the end of the day, you asked me to get a job done. It doesn't matter what my path looks like to get there. You just asked me to get it done and I got it done.
Yep.
So you have to be willing to trust yourself and know that you have the right answer. And by you trusting yourself is the invitation for somebody else to trust you too. Mm-hmm. So.
That's great advice. Thank you for that.
and meet yourself where you're at.
For sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm here. I am, I get to recreate trust every single day if it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've got to have a little grace with ourselves, to meet ourselves where we're
Oh
at.
man. My saying for right now is like grace and space. I need to give all the grace. I need to receive the grace, and I need space to figure this out.
Yeah. Yeah. I really miss my commutes. I'm going to be really honest with you. My alone time in the car, just some space.
Yeah, it's tough right now because we have to, I miss that too. And I've actually had to tell my kids a couple times, I'm going on a walk and I'm going without you because I need some space.
Yep.
There are very few places that I can get that right now. And we can come back and ride bikes after or spend time with you, but compartmentalizing and being able to get what you need. Self-care is everything, just everything.
Yep.
And I think that that's the biggest thing is I was so busy contributing to everybody else in the world that I was drained and I was tired through many points in my professional career. And you've got to turn around and, as my friend Wendy says, put your own oxygen mask on in order to even be able to do all the things that you want to do for the people that you care about.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Put your own oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Love that.
Yes.
Love that. Well, Amber, thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing your story. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in to watch. It's my hope that you'll find insight and inspiration in Amber's story and that you'll join us next time as we pass the microphone to another female leader. We want to give a special thanks to our sponsor, the Center for Leadership Excellence, who's on a mission to make organizations great places for women to work. You can learn more about the center at cleindy.com. Please be sure to visit us at ladies-leading.com, where you can find more information about the project, you can see past episodes, and you can even nominate a female leader that you think should be on the show. Thank you for joining us again on Ladies Leading. Y'all, wasn't Amber incredible? I just loved so much about her story, and I think there's so many important lessons that we can gain from her experiences. At the end of every Ladies Leading episode, we'll spend a little time together where I'll share with you some of the big lessons that I took away from each episode so that we can continue to gain precious insight from the stories of women on their journeys through leadership. I think there's 3 important lessons that I took away from Amber's interview. The first one's about courage. The second one is about authenticity. And the third one is about perseverance. I think Amber's word, courageous, wove through every part of her interview. And there were so many important lessons about what it really means to be courageous in our careers. Whether it's the courage to say, this job doesn't work for me anymore, or it's courageous to say, I'm going to take this new opportunity, even though it's scary. Or it's courageous to say, I'm going to speak up and advocate for myself. Or it's courageous to say, I'm going to confront this coworker about a problem that we're not talking about. And we're going to have a hard conversation. I think courage shows up in so many ways. And I think so many times we live in fear of hurting someone's feelings. We live in fear of the word no. We live in fear of rejection, or we live in fear of someone taking what we say the wrong way. And so we just don't speak up. And I think Amber is such a great example of what it means to be courageous and take ownership for our experiences. She said at one point in her interview, got my notes here, everybody. She said at one point in her interview, I didn't get where I am without asking for help. And I think it takes so much courage for us to ask for help. But that's what it means to advocate for ourselves, to ask when we need help, but to also ask what we can be doing better, but also to ask for that promotion or ask for that raise or ask for more responsibility. And that takes a lot of courage. She also said, if I hadn't asked, the answer would always be no. And I think that's such an important point. Sometimes we're not courageous and we don't even get the answer no because we've never actually asked. And so courage allows us to open ourselves up to new opportunities. And then she followed that with, take the risk, because you never know what's on the other side of it. And what's on the other side could be a great new job, or a great new promotion, or a great new pay raise, or a great new relationship with a colleague, or a great new opportunity that presented itself because you chose to speak up. And I think that that is such an important message for us as female leaders, to remind ourselves to be courageous. The second part was Amber talked a lot about the masks that we wear and the work that she has done to unmask herself and find who she truly authentically is. And I think showing up as our authentic selves at work is such an important piece of what it means to be a leader and how we can continue to ascend. She talked a lot about not changing who we are to fit the job, but finding the job that fits who we already are. And she even said at one point, show up as your authentic self. Make no excuses for who you are. People get to receive you exactly the way that you are. And if they don't, that's on them, not you. And I think that's such important advice for us as women, to do the work, to figure out what it really means to be our authentic selves. And then ask ourselves, do our jobs and do our roles allow us to truly be ourselves? Or are we wearing a mask in our day-to-day lives at work? And I think when we wear those masks, it limits our ability to be a great leader. It limits our ability to speak up, and it limits our ability to truly lead in the best way we can as women. The third lesson is about perseverance. I think Amber is a true example of never being willing to give up, and always being willing to keep trying, to keep digging, and to keep going. And I think I love the most that what she said in the whole interview was, you just gotta keep showing up. Just keep showing up with your God-given gifts, and it's going to give you everything that you need in the moment. And I think that was such an important point. I think so many times we give up, so many times we let go, and so many times we just stop persevering in the workplace. And she's just such a true testament of what it means to never give up and to keep pushing no matter what. She talked a lot about having 17 jobs before she found the one that she had, and having a business failure under her belt. And I think those examples show us that as female leaders, we're going to fail. And as female leaders, what makes us exceptional isn't the failure, it's what we do from the failure. My most favorite quote of the thing that she said, and we've shared it on social media already, is she said, I fed off the other women's courage. They were pouring into me. They were building me up and allowing me to stand on their shoulders until I had the wherewithal to get up on my own 2 feet again. And that for me is the purpose of Ladies Leading. That for me is the purpose of female leadership, is to be the shoulders that other women can stand on until they have the wherewithal to stand on their own 2 feet. And I think Amber's messages in this episode were so important. And we chose it intentionally to be our first episode because I think it opens the door for you to understand what we're truly trying to do at Ladies Leading. We're trying to give women the microphone, and we're trying to share the stories of women supporting other women, of women and the lessons that they've learned on their journeys through leadership, so that we as women can continue to support each other, continue to advance, and continue to face these challenges with a new set of eyes, a new set of skills, and a new set of confidence. I thank you all so much for joining us on our first episode of Ladies Leading. Please make sure to check out our website at ladies-leading.com. You can check out future episodes there, subscribe to get updates when new episodes are posted, and also recommend a female leader to be on our show. I also want to thank the Center for Leadership Excellence, our sponsor. They are actively working to make organizations great places for women to work. You can learn more at cleindy.com. And we cannot wait till you all join us again later this week, where we'll be releasing another episode of Ladies Leading.